Welcome to Cohn and Krueger today over on the Krug Show channel, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The Niners lose again, and we got a lot to talk about. What's the future of Kyle? What's the future of Brock? What's the future of the 49ers? Are they going to win another game? It's all on the table. Let's go right now. I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. And Grant in the house. And that means we're, of course, both sponsored by BetUS. With BetUS, you get the fastest payouts in the industry and easy withdrawals, live wagering on all major games, plus you get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. On top of that, you get your own personal account manager. What do? Well, you head over to betus.com today. Use the promo code YouTube150 and get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next two, up to $2,000. Again, sign up at betus.com. Use the code YouTube150 to claim that offer. And Grant and I will look at Niners Bears and that spread, courtesy of BetUS, in a bit. But Grant Cohn's in the house, and we're off and running. We titled the stream, "What should the 49ers do with Brock Purdy? Is he the future?" Grant, what do you think? I mean, I was listening to Brian Baldinger talking about Purdy, and he's like, you know what? I don't think he's playing great, but I do think he sees the field. I still think he's pretty accurate with the football, but the Niners and Brock are not making big plays right now. They're not making explosives. The turnovers are killing them. The penalties are killing them. They've got 8 giveaways in the last month, only 1 takeaway on defense. So what do you think? Is Brock the guy long-term, or is he not?
I don't think he's proven that he's the guy long-term. So, I mean, because he's not having a great year, and that's concerning right before it's time to give him an extension. And he clearly can't really play effectively in wet conditions, which is not the biggest problem when you're a 49er, but it's an issue if in the playoffs, you're probably going to have to play a bad weather game, and he doesn't seem like he can do that effectively. So I think he's sort of in between. I think the idea that he would get a 5-year contract extension probably is out the window. I don't think he's going to be in the $50 million range anymore. Maybe I'm wrong. I think what the Niners could do, maybe partly because of all he's done for them at such a low price, but say, look, we appreciate you. Here's a 2-year extension worth $60 million or $70 million. And we think that's fair. And if you'd like more, you can always play on the final year of your contract and bet on yourself. And if you don't like that contract, we could go and offer it to someone else too. Like, I think it's really strange that Brock's having this down season while Sam Darnold's kind of going berserk over with Minnesota. Not saying that Sam Darnold is a great quarterback, but he's really doing very well. And if he's going to be in like the 2-year, $60 million a year range, then I don't see how the Niners could offer Brock anything more than that.
You know, they're in a weird predicament because what is Brock? Well, he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was better than Trey Lance. And that's kind of how we got here. Mm-hmm. But is he Josh Allen? No. Is he Lamar? No. Is he Mahomes? No. And to be quite blunt about it, he has not been particularly good this year. And that's kind of a fact at this point. He has struggled this year. So, and he struggled really since that Ravens game. Now, how much of it is legitimately on Brock? How much of it is what's going on around Brock? That's really hard to know. When I watch the All 22, what stands out to me is just the entire equation is breaking down. The offensive line is not giving him a lot of time consistently. So, and it's kind of hard to predict when they will and when they won't. It's kind of random. So he's at times bailing from the pocket before he should. And at times he's under a lot of heat and has to run. So that's part of the equation that's breaking down. And then the Niners, until this game where, Buffalo plays 2 high safeties militantly and just says, hey, we'll give you the run, but you're not going up top. The Niners ran well in this last game, but how much of that was Buffalo giving up 4.9 a carry coming in, and how much of that was the Niner offensive line actually opening holes? I don't know. but they struggled to run the 2 or 3 weeks prior. The receivers don't separate. I mean, you can really see that. Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick. He's done absolutely nothing. I mean, I know he was shot. There's sensitivities and whatnot, but I mean, come on. The last 3 games, he's a total non-factor. 63 targets or 63 routes run, and not a single catch in 3 weeks. I mean, this is your first-round draft choice. So I just kind of think that
Kyle Shanahan's been figured out a little bit. The red zone offense isn't working. I mean, it's everyone. It's not just Brock. You're absolutely right.
But it's not just Brock. So it's like, you
can't
go away from Brock? Do you go away from Brock and take your chances? Would Sam Darnold be better with this cast and this line? And I know he looks good in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, but would he look good here with Ricky Pearsall? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a tough one, but that's kind of that's the dilemma that they're at. Would you say, Grant, that you think that this is more about Brock's struggles? I mean, are the 49ers issues offensively most attributable to Brock, Kyle, the O-line, or the really slow group of receivers?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think they all share in it. I think Kyle Shanahan's been caught up to and figured out to a degree, and I think Brock Purdy's limitations are catching up to him. And I think we saw that in the snow. Like, there's a big difference between him and Josh Allen. There's a huge difference. So I think Darnold would have played much better in that game than Brock, just because Darnold has a stronger arm. And that's kind of disconcerting, because I didn't really think Darnold was that good. But if he's going for the same price as Brock Purdy next year, I don't know who I'd rather take, actually, at that point. And I mean, it feels like this team needs not just a retooling around the edges. They might need a new head coach. They might need a new quarterback. They might need to trade both of them. Those two might be the guys with the most trade value on the team. Although maybe not. I mean, what is Brock even worth anymore in a trade?
I mean, it's beauty in the eye of the beholder. I mean, we know that he would be worth something because there's a lot of bad quarterbacks. But I mean, Jesse had the stats today on his Twitter. He's like, Brock ranks 21st in touchdown percentage this year amongst NFL starters, 0.3 behind the league average. He's got him 20th in the league in interception percentage, 13th in the league in yards per game, 18th in the league in completion percentage, a little bit over league average there, 14th in passer rating, 2.9 above league average there. We know the Niners don't look as good. He doesn't look as good. How much of it is his actual regression? How much of it is the league catching up to him? And how much of it is we're blaming the quarterback because the line's not good, the receivers are slow, and Shanahan's not having a very good year? I don't know. I don't know who to hold, whose feet to hold to the fire. But offensively, I think their issues offensively are not as big a deal as their defensive issues, because I think their issues offensively a lot have to do with injuries, and I think that what you see on defense, I just think their whole equation defensively is eroding. I mean, they're not good on any aspect of all 3 levels of the D are bad. Where the offense to me looks like similar, but you don't have Ayuk, and I don't know that you have any real deep threat. So like they're a receiving core that lacks a deep threat. So they have no speed at wide receiver. So, I watch the all-22. I don't sit there and go, oh, my God, look at that guy. He's wide freaking open. Oh, my God, Brock missed that guy. He was wide freaking open. I see Niner receivers kind of locked on to the defenders a lot. So not exclusively, but a lot.
It's just disconcerting that with Brock, he's like 24, 25 years old, and he's not getting better. Maybe he'll get better down the line. But right now he's not getting better, whereas there's these reclamation projects who are older than him around the league who are having these career renaissances. Like Darnold's one, Baker Mayfield's having the best season of his career. Geno Smith is a successful reclamation project. Jared Goff, he's over 30 years old. He's playing the best football of his career. The Rams may have given up on him too soon. Or he needed to go to Detroit to find himself. But maybe the 49ers, maybe they have to look at Brock as like, you gave us your best. I mean, you're not worth this much money. You might be breaking down a little bit with your small frame and your injuries to your throwing arm. Maybe it's time to go get not Kirk, but at least Kyle knows Sam Darnold. At least they know each other, and Darnold knows the team and the system. I think I would prefer that to Kyle drafting a quarterback. I wouldn't trust him to actually pick one.
it's a
But then
tough
again,
call.
is Sam Darnold going to fix the problems of this team? Probably not. Probably not.
Well, I mean, he can't run, so he's not going to be better as far as like behind this line. At least Brock can run. I mean, we saw with Brandon Allen. You're looking at Brandon Allen last week going run. Oh, and then you realize, oh, you can't run. You can't run at all. So the mobility. I mean, I don't know how you view mobility. I kind of view mobility
It's
as
important.
almost a must among young quarterbacks. I don't know if I want to go down a road with a quarterback like a Cousins or a Darnold or a Mac Jones. I think you got to have some movement ability at the next level. Maybe, I mean, there are exceptions, but I mean, man, Josh Allen can sure move, and Mahomes moves enough. And we know Lamar. I mean, Lamar's an excellent mover. Hurts, he moves really well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what the answer is at quarterback. I mean, to me, I like Brock Purdy. I'm a believer in Brock Purdy, but I can see the flaws and I can see the limitations. And
I like his running better than his passing at this point.
And he's not the kind of talent that can just be like, get aboard and I'm carrying you. I mean, Josh Allen made a couple throws in that game this weekend that were like, what? Like in the snow between two defenders, a laser 25 yards down the field, defenders all hanging over him, draped all over the receiver, and he just sticks it right in there. I mean, he is a freaking amazing player. And it's tough to watch all these great quarterbacks who were big Niner fans. And we're from here, and the Niners didn't get any of them. But I don't know who would be. So are you saying that you'd rather have Darnold than Purdy next year? If it came
it depends on the price point. I mean,
if the price
I think it depends what Purdy does. Let's see what these quarterbacks do the last 5 games of the season. Like maybe Purdy finishes really strong and wins 4 of the next 5 games and wins a division. That would be huge. I'd like to see how he finishes off this season, because right now his stock is as low as it's ever been, and it's unfair to judge him right now.
Well, here's the other thing, too. It's like, look at some of these guys we're talking about. Sam Darnold went to Minnesota. They're really well coached. They got a really good offensive line. Then Darisaw went down, and suddenly Sam started throwing interceptions. Then they traded for Cam Robinson and kind of upgraded their offensive line. He seems like he's kind of bounced back. But you got Sam behind a good line. You got Mahomes behind the best interior line in the game. You got Philly bounced back from an ugly year this year, and a lot of it's the strength of their O-line. And then you look at Buffalo. Josh Allen was sacked fewer than any quarterback in pro football coming into that game last week with the Niners. So in some ways, I feel like this all points back to the Niners have to get serious about their O-line. And they really haven't been. They've just kind of they've only given a passing glance, even in this last year when the rest of us were like, they need to devote this entire draft to the O-line. They took Pooney, but it wasn't until the 3rd round.
So they could have taken Zach Frazier in round 1. That would have been great.
That would have been great. I was calling for that. But then also Chris Forster kind of indicated their philosophy, which is, hey, you can find game breakers in the 3rd round at receiver. You can't find that. You can find offensive linemen that can help you later, I guess. But I mean, look at your line. I mean, you're outside of this game against Buffalo, you're running into a wall on a regular basis, and Trent Williams is old, and Banks got dominated by Carl Brooks, and Brendel's the lowest rated center in the league, and Pooney's a rookie, and McKivitz is a replacement level right tackle. I mean, you don't have a very good offensive line. Isn't that why Darnold's good? Isn't that why Baker's good? Isn't that why, some of these guys are better in these new spots because they're getting to better situations with better offensive lines?
I would say so. I mean, yes, the offensive line helps. Absolutely. The Niners don't necessarily have a good one. That would probably help. Yeah. It's helped Jared Goff. It's helped Sam Darnold. But here's one more thing. Like maybe the Niners don't get rid of Brock. Maybe they keep Brock. Maybe they don't give him an extension. But I think they're going to probably have to draft another quarterback, whether it's round 2 or round 3 or round 4. Even if they keep Brock, they got to get another quarterback on this team because they just don't know for sure. Unless, again, he just goes on a tear in the last 5 games, wins out, has great, starts to show the level of play that he was showing a year ago. If he can do that, then he'll get the money. But right now, no, they're going to have to draft a quarterback.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's a stark contrast, and I don't know if your dad has brought this up, but your dad covered the Niners in a different era, a different regime. Nobody ever cared about Steve Young's feelings. Nobody ever cared about Joe Montana's feelings. I kind of feel like there's so many people kind of tiptoeing around everybody's feelings. I don't care about anybody's feelings. Don't. I mean, yeah. Would Brock Purdy be happier with a couple backups who are no threat to ever start? Yeah, that's what you got this year.
That's what he got this
Dobbs
year.
And Brandon
Didn't
Allen.
help.
Yeah, how's that doing for you?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think I don't know if Brock's the long-term answer. Okay. But I also don't think I want to kick him to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess and also you're going to have to pay him, whether you pay him this year, next year, whatever.
His trade value might not be that high either. I mean, if you wanted to kick him, you might not even get a first-round pick for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd get. I think I have a tendency to think that you probably would, but who knows?
Who knows
about that? But then I look at this and just go, okay, so at some point you're going to pay him. And what is he worth? I mean, I don't know what he's worth, but I mean, Tua Tagovailoa made $53 million. I think he's better than Tua Tagovailoa. Now Tua was the Miami Dolphins were horrible as soon as Tua went out. And now with him, they look much more like themselves. But I think Brock's kind of in that category, and Tua got $53 million, and I don't want to pay Brock $53 million.
Right.
So I mean that they're in a kind of a pickle here.
If that's what Brock wants to get, if that's what he thinks he can get, then I would trade him. Hey man, good luck. Do that somewhere else. Or sorry, you're under contract and you need to be here and play for $900,000, and then we'll franchise tag you if we want to.
My only thing would be if you do bring Brock back, the room has got to be cheap and challenging. And right now, it's expensive or relatively expensive because you got a couple veterans there and no challenge. There's no challenge to Brock's security as the starter. I like Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. I kind of like Haynes King from Georgia Tech. They're both kind of pocket passers who have mobility. I kind of like Tanner Mordecai as a backup. I'd be okay going into next year with Brock as the starter, a couple guys out of the draft who I liked, and Tanner Mordecai, because you're not going to have any money. And you need a cheap room, but you need some guys. You got to keep drafting. I mean, the stat that jumped out to me this week, Grant, was Colin Cowherd, who I can't stand, but he does have a good point. He's like, of the last 21 quarterbacks who've won the Super Bowl, 18 are either Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He's not a future Hall of Famer. The Niners want to win the Super Bowl. I want to see them win the Super Bowl. It's a possibility that Brock can't get them there. I believe in him, but at this point, I think even the biggest Brock supporter has to admit there's a possibility that he's not the guy. So what do? What I would do is go forward with Brock. Don't pay him this year. Go draft a couple young quarterbacks that you like, or one, let's say, and have a young, cheap quarterback room with some young guys that you like. Coach up the position and keep drafting quarterbacks. Why? Because until you find, your future Hall of Famer, you got to be in that looking mode. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, we got our guy. We'll just bring in Dobbs. We'll bring in Allen. Our guy will be comfy cozy. I don't want Brock to be comfy cozy. I want him to be looking at Haynes King and Riley Leonard saying, those guys are bigger than me. Those guys are faster than me. Those guys look really good. And I need to play my ass off or I'm going to lose my starting job. And it was okay for Joe and Steve to have competition. I think Kyle needs to reintroduce the idea of competition at quarterback and not just make everybody happy.
I think people are also really nice about Brock and to Brock because he hasn't gotten paid yet. It's almost like the Niners have almost taken advantage of him, although he knew what he signed up for. But he's made about $3 million gross in his career, and he's played all these big games. I think people feel like he kind of needs to get paid retroactively, but that's not the way sports work. And he's going to get paid a lot of money one way or another. And the Niners don't have to make a sentimental mistake. I mean, they gave out money to anyone who wanted it this offseason. They were completely indiscriminate, except for Eric Armstead. But everyone else got everything they wanted, and it didn't work out for them. I think the Niners need to be much more discriminate this offseason with this contract and compare him to other guys who were available. I mean, there's other reclamation projects who aren't Sam Darnold who are available that they could get for probably like $1 million. There's other guys out there who have pedigree and traits that this guy doesn't have. Jameis Winston's available. They could go get Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, there are guys they could get for pennies.
Well, but you're not saying those guys are better than Brock. You're just
no,
saying
but I'm saying
cheaper.
to add. to add to the room.
In addition to.
Absolutely. And like what you don't want you to do is just give out the big 5-year, $250 million contract just because. Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been enough backsliding this year to make you want to pause, or at least to make you want to see more. I mean, come on. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? I think the guy's got some talent. I think the guy's got some juice, but the offense backslid.
This last season was disconcerting. We haven't seen enough.
And then, here's the other thing. The Super Bowl is usually in a warm weather spot or an indoor spot. But to get to the Super Bowl, you got to play damn good football in December and January in Philadelphia, Green Bay. Outdoor conditions, Kansas City, in the AFC. But I mean, there's any number of places that you're going to have to play that are cold weather, wet weather. Yep. And if you got a quarterback that can't handle the football, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah. Look, if Larry is saying this today, it's an issue, man, because Larry has been as enthusiastic and optimistic about Brock as anyone. But Larry is also an unbiased reporter who calls it how he sees it.
I want to see.
You got to see. I mean, anyone can see it right now. It's been 13 weeks and it's not getting better. And now it's like going back to the Baltimore game. It's been like almost 40% of Brock's career. So he's going to need to either pull out of this down the stretch or this will be, he'll have to answer for this.
In a lot of ways, I feel like he's playing decently and doing the best that he can. I just don't think he's got a lot. I don't think he's got a line. I don't think he's got healthy backs. I don't think he's got fast receivers. I don't think he's got a good defense. I don't think he's got
doesn't have a great offensive coordinator anymore. I'm sorry.
There's a special teams, there's a circus. I mean, their whole equation has bogged down, and he's the guy that we're centering on because he's on the verge of potentially being paid. But we're not trying to pretend that he is he is the end all be all as far as their issues.
No.
Let's hear from Schefter. Adam Schefter, basically was commenting on the, future of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And here's what Schefter had to say.
He's over there, right? For anybody?
I mean, I don't think so. Here's how I always think about it. Because I think you're asking about the head coach or the GM, right? If they want to move on from John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan, which I've gotten zero indication that they want to do, how quickly do you think it would be before there would be another team that would want to hire both of them?
Oh, yeah. Very quickly.
All right. Well, I mean, that, I don't know. I don't know if that even should be the barometer anymore. Because other people were going to hire Kyle or John. I wouldn't dump Kyle Shanahan at this point. But I know there are a lot of people that are very, I know there are lots of Niner fans that are at their wits' end with him and feel like he's burnt out and needs a change, a sabbatical, whatever. The 49ers did consider trading Jim Harbaugh to Cleveland once upon a time. In fact, Florio, before we comment on this, I mean, why don't we start here? Do you think the 49ers should move on from Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, or both?
I do. 8 years is a long time, and I think you're starting to see some fatigue with the team. I don't think they're really responding to his voice and his message the way that they used to. I think this is a team that's underachieved as much as any team in the league right now, and I think he needs a fresh start. They need a fresh start, and I think they could do a lot better. Even with someone who doesn't have the kind of name that he has. I feel like his whole arrogance bordering on smugness was really cool when he was winning, but now I think it just looks kind of tired. He looks kind of tired. I think they both would benefit from a fresh start.
I'm okay with, I like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. I think I would stay with them, but I'm not staying with them without conditions. And this is where this thing gets a little wonky.
Right. Because once you start setting conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, because right now it's Jed's hired them and they're the czar of their world. Mm-hmm. But it's not at this point. I think, I would like to strip Kyle of some of the personnel control that he has. I think there's been mistakes there. I'd like to bring in a draft consultant of note, a John Dorsey.
Can we talk about the first round pick this year? I mean, they made some good draft picks this year, but They really needed a hit on that first round pick. It was their first round pick in years. And they got the one wide receiver who's not producing in this draft. Every other wide receiver is producing except for Ricky Pearsall. They could have had Ladd McConkey, who was really good in college and is now really good in the pros. Like, what's going on?
Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman. They were all right there. And the Niners took Ricky Pearsall. And Ricky Pearsall has run 63 routes in the last 3 games. He's only been targeted 3 times, and he has no catches. When I heard Brian Baldinger on the radio today talking about him, or yesterday, he says you don't even notice him on the field. He's like literally like the invisible man out there, which is like the worst thing you can be. So I guess my thing with John and Kyle is, hey, guess what? I just listened to Kyle Shanahan tell us that he loves Nick Sorensen. Okay. If you want to alleviate Sorensen from blame for this defense, that's fine. But guess who gets the blame? You and John. Because
let's
talk
about that for a second.
The defense is backslid. The defense is not what it was. So if you're not going to hold Sorensen's feet to the fire and say, hey, you know what? We're not happy here, then we're going to start assuming that the problem is not the scheme at all, but the personnel. And who's responsible for the personnel?
Well, Kyle would say John is, even though it's Kyle. So to me, when Kyle says, I think Sorensen's doing a really good job and our team just isn't as good as it was last year, he's pointing the finger at John.
Yeah.
And saying, blame him. And when John goes on the radio and says, our team just sort of lacks discipline this year, to me, that's him saying, blame Kyle. Because Kyle's responsible for discipline, and Kyle seems to not have it. So I wonder if there's a little tension between them as the ship is potentially sinking, if they're trying to throw each other overboard.
Or just trying to position to their boss, Jed and Parag and the Yorks, that, hey, you know what? This thing's falling apart, but it ain't my fault.
Right.
This thing's falling apart, but don't point at me. And I don't know. I mean, Kyle could be right. Kyle could be wrong. I don't know their inner workings. Does Kyle pick the players, or does John pick the players? If John picks the players, who signed Devondre Campbell? Like to know. Who signed?
They gave him
Isaiah
a pretty
Oliver?
penny too. What was that?
I mean, it was a mistake, is what it was.
Yeah,
it was a mistake.
Who was the Niners' best signing of the offseason?
$280 guaranteed dollars after the draft to Evan Anderson was undoubtedly the best move, because they competed with Buffalo, Seattle. He could have been in Seattle. This kid's 320 pounds. He's strong as hell, and he's really strong against the run. I think he's been the lone bright spot on that defensive line. He was the only guy doing anything in Buffalo or Green Bay.
The agents they added to the defense, they've done nothing.
Nothing. Campbell, bust. Oliver the year before, bust.
But I mean, like Floyd, Collins,
Floyd's
Elliott,
been okay. Collins been okay. I mean, they're kind of stopgap. They're lines eroded because of all the missed picks. Kinlaw, Solly. I mean, they've invested a lot of picks in their. I looked at it yesterday. I went through 2017 through this last year's draft. The Niners have hit on 38% of their picks. That means they've missed on 62% of their picks. That 38% hit rate in the draft. I know it's not science. It's art, and it's not a perfect deal. But you got to be able to go 1 for 2. You got to be able to hit 50%. If you're hitting 38%, that's not good. You got to be able to hit 1 of every 2 draft choices, and they're not. They're hitting 38%. So they're not getting it done in the draft consistently. Kyle looks like he's kind of pointing at, if he's saying it's not Sorensen's problem, then he's literally pointing at himself and Lynch. And Lynch saying that they're not disciplined, he seems like he's pointing the finger at Kyle. And I get the feeling that Lynch is kind of like has to kind of cover for Kyle sometimes. But let's play the Florio. We got a Florio audio piece here. And he's talking about the idea, that the Niners considered trading Jim Harbaugh to Cleveland, and then it didn't materialize. But let's hear from Florio.
One thing that I don't think happens enough is the John Gruden model, where you call up a team and you say, are you interested in releasing your coach, and what would the compensation be? And I've mentioned both Kyle Shanahan and John Harbaugh today as guys that maybe the Bears should call about And yes, it's going to cost you something by way of draft pick compensation. But like if you would get Shanahan, and I feel like Shanahan and the 49ers are getting close to the point where they would benefit mutually from a fresh start. If you can get Shanahan and join him at the hip with Caleb Williams, are you kidding me?
What gives you the impression that the Niners and Kyle Shanahan would have a mutual separation like that?
Well, there's nothing specific, but you just look at the situation. It's been since 2017. They've kind of been annually banging their head against the door, trying to break it down. This year just feels kind of weird. It feels like it's coming to an end from the standpoint of the nucleus of players that they've had there. And you never know what's really going on behind the scenes. And I mentioned the 49ers in part because it was 10 years ago or so when they had Jim Harbaugh going into what was the fourth year of his tenure there. The first 3 years had all been very successful. NFC Championship, Super Bowl, and NFC Championship. And we reported at the time, and it was accurate, and it was confirmed by the Browns in a roundabout way, that the 49ers were close to trading Jim Harbaugh to the Cleveland Browns. So you never know at the top of the organization whether or not there's a sense that maybe it's time for a change. But after the 49ers lost to the Chiefs, one of the first things I thought is, at some point I feel like Kyle Shanahan needs an Andy Reid reset, where I've exhausted every opportunity with the team that I started my coaching career with. It's time to go to a new place. And I know Reid got fired. He landed on his feet in Kansas City, and the rest is history. But I feel like at some point Shanahan needs that.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about the Reid.
Agree
thing
with
for a
all
second.
of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, and Florio, I can't stand Florio, but I kind of feel like he's sniffing around in the right area here. I mean, the Andy Reid thing is only worked out in Philly. Let's be real about this. Andy Reid was kicked out of Philly after 13 years. Okay, he didn't get it done. He went to Kansas City. He's won 3, right? He's won 3 and lost 1. He's on his way to maybe winning 5. I mean, he's probably going to win another 1 or 2. So he's become a dynasty in Kansas City. The only reason Philly even tries to pretend that it's okay that they did this move is because Doug Peterson won them a ring, and they still have a pretty good football team, and they're in the running for the Super Bowl this year. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, without Doug Peterson's ring, they're jackasses. They just got rid of a coach that they invested 13 years in, only to watch him go somewhere else, get a better quarterback, better support, and win 3 Super Bowls, and maybe win 5. So it's like,
yes and no, though. I mean, I think what Florio's point was that, like, after a certain amount of time, what was it, 8 years, 13 years, whatever it is, a guy may need a fresh start. Like, his voice may no longer resonate with the players there. And yeah, you could try to rebuild it there. I think Andy Reid tried. He did it with Michael Vick. I mean, maybe Kyle Shanahan has the patience to tear it down and build it up here, or maybe he doesn't even want to do that. Has that ever crossed anyone's mind that he's looking at this just like everyone else is and is like, you know what, maybe Brock's not the guy, and maybe we got to like cut Javon Hargrave and Debo and Juszczyk and kind of gut this and start over? I don't want to do that. It would be easier to just get fired and go somewhere else that I pick with the quarterback that I pick. Like, that could be easier for him and get a raise in the process. I'm not saying he wants to get fired, but I also not saying that he necessarily wants to stick it out here long term the way fans want him to.
Yeah,
some do.
No, I think it's absolutely spot on. I mean, we assume, because we are lifelong, maybe
Right.
Bay Area people, that he wants to be here.
Right.
But we don't know that. And this whole talk of, I've had people send me notes on X going, Krug, come on, bro. He's not walking away from whatever number of dollars. Dude, whatever he's walking away from, he's going to get that and then some in his next
Chicago would pay him that.
He's not worried at all about money. Are you kidding me?
I do think the trade thing is interesting because the Niners don't want the potential like shame and embarrassment of firing this guy.
Jed can't do it. Jed can't fire him.
But you could trade him.
Couldn't fire Jim.
But you could trade him.
You could trade him. That's
different. And if you do trade him, I think he's worth like maybe 2 first-round picks, maybe more.
Yeah, what do you want in return? The Bears come to you. God, and if I'm Kyle, do you want to go coach up Caleb in Chicago? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. He doesn't seem like he wants to be coached.
You catch Caleb on the right day and you're like, oh my God, he's an albatross. He's going to sink you to the bottom of the NFL Ocean. Or other days you're like, hey, look at this guy. This guy's winging it.
He seems like Kyle's worst nightmare, man. He goes off script every play.
He does, and he holds
every
the ball.
play.
And if he likes guys who process quickly, and Brock is one of those guys, he's really not going to like Caleb, because Caleb holds the ball for an eternity, more than almost any any young quarterback I've seen. But Florio does make a point that the nucleus is coming to an end, whether Kyle stays or not. Debo's done. CMC's got double Achilles and now a PCL injury. How much realistically, if he's a car, what's his mileage? 200,000. I mean, he's got huge mileage. Trent Williams is maybe going to play for 3 more years, but is he going to play at the elite level for what? Maybe 1 more year. Obviously, I don't want to be critical of Trent this week. He's just gone through hell. I mean, I can't even imagine what he's gone through. But just talking about him clinically in his career, unbiased. I mean, he's probably got 3 years left and maybe 1 or 2 at a high level. Hargrave probably going to have to cut him at the end of the year. His contract, that did not work out. Banks, you're going to have to let walk. That's your starting left guard. Ayuk is probably not going to play next year. If he does, the chances of him being diminished are really, really high. Leonard Floyd, your bookend for Bosa, is at the end of his career. So, see what I'm saying? The O-line needs players. The D-line needs players. The linebacker core needs a complete redo. They don't have a free safety. They're really slow at wide receiver. They don't have a number 1 running back. They've got no tight ends on the roster worth a damn outside of Kittle and Mason Pline as a practice squad guy. They don't have a lot, Grant. Shanahan, I get the sense that Shanahan's looking at this and he knows they don't have a lot. He's like, we're not as good this year. But also, I kind of get the feeling that Jed may say to him, hey, how about you come back, and we bring in this guy as a draft consultant, or how about we bring in this guy to help out or whatever. And I could see Kyle pushing back on that, saying, hey, I don't want any of these conditions. I want the deal that I originally signed up for here. And if I can't have that deal, I don't want to be here. So
here's the thing, though.
They could be headed towards a mutual parting if Jed starts saying, I want this, this, and this.
You're right. I agree. And like you said, the roster's getting older. There's not a lot left. But if Brock Purdy were Joe Burrow, if Brock Purdy were Justin Herbert, if he were even CJ Stroud or Jordan Love, maybe Kyle Shanahan would say, you know what, I want to stay here. I want to be here for the next 10 years. I want to be coaching this guy for the rest of my career, the rest of his career, because he's special. I think if Kyle's having these second thoughts, it's probably mostly going to be about the quarterback. Do I really want to be tied to Brock for a long time? He experienced that with Jimmy already, and it seems like it took years off of his life. Look at him. He looks old. Maybe he's just a little nervous about this. The numbers are down. He's not going to blame himself for it. He's going to probably put it on Brock. And unless Brock can do something drastic in the next 5 weeks to change people's perceptions, I could see Kyle being like, you know what? I'm out. I don't want to do this. The Yorks like this kid a lot. They think he's the next Steve Young. I don't.
It's interesting. I don't know if would he hold, does he feel like Brock's the issue, or does he feel like his O-line, his receivers are the issue? I don't think he's going to say he's the issue. That's for sure. That's my guess. My guess is Kyle won't think he's the issue. All right.
Good guess.
Let's hit BetUS. Are you looking for a new book this football season? BetUS is the answer. With BetUS, you get the fastest payouts in the industry and easy withdrawals. I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to make a little wager from BetUS. If I can call this up. Let me see if I can do this correctly. And then we will take a look at Niners Bears and what it looks like this weekend. Let me go there, get the right page up there, and then we can do this. There we go. All right. So now we're looking at, didn't share the screen. There we go. Here we go. Now we're in biz. All right. Bears, Niners at Levi's, 125 on Sunday. 49ers -3.5. How do you feel? How do you feel about that one, Grant? Is it the Bears? The Bears going to rise up and put the fork in the Niners, or the Niners going to stave off elimination?
I like the Bears. The way I look at it is the Bears just played a close game against Detroit. I don't think the Niners could do that right now. They just got blown out by two teams that may not be as good as Detroit. So the Bears seem like they have more fight in them. They played Green Bay a couple of weeks ago and lost by 1.
Played them way tougher than the Niners.
Way tougher. So I don't really like the Niners right now. I'm not sure who they can beat right now. I think they're kind of defeated.
We'll take the Bears plus the 3.5.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll parlay this. Okay, so then is there any other game that you like? Seattle's getting 3 in Arizona. Dolphins are 6-point favorites against the Jets. Eagles minus 13 at home against Carolina. Sometimes those big spreads, it's like
I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that.
Sometimes it's an indicator somebody's thinking a blowout.
What about Tampa over the Raiders?
Yeah, Bucks at home minus 6.5 over the Raiders.
So that's a big spread, but I kind of like that for Tampa.
Big spread.
Yeah.
The Raiders.
Tampa's
defense
Raiders is terrible.
Vikings are 5.5-point favorites over the Falcons. What about Detroit over Green Bay in Detroit? Detroit went to Green Bay and beat them pretty convincingly, and now they're only 3.5-point favorites at home.
Yeah, I like Detroit there. I don't see where the skepticism is coming from there.
Okay, let's go Detroit. We'll throw that one in there. Maybe one more. What else? Well, let's go with Buccaneers. We'll go with the Buccaneers.
Let's do that.
Let's go Buccaneers. So we got Buccaneers minus 6, and we've got Lions minus 3.5. And we're going with the Bears. So we could potentially win 56-28 on this wager. And once again, live wagering on all major games, plus you get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. You get your own personal account manager. But this is what you do. You head over to betus.com today, use that promo code YouTube150, and you'll get 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Again, sign up at betus.com, use the code YouTube150 to claim that offer. And BetUS is chatting with us. No. Are you sure you want to stop chatting? Yeah, I am pretty sure.
Yeah. Not now.
I'm not going to chat now. I'm not going to chat. But thanks to BetUS for being a proud sponsor of both of our shows, the Krug Show and, of course, the Cohn Zone. All right. Couple more topics here. One, the 49ers have now a running back issue, right? Because JP Mason, IR, CMC, IR. Today, they re-signed Keyshawn Vaughn to the practice squad, but they also picked Izzy Abanikanda off waivers from the Jets. You know what? I know this sounds crazy because Abanikanda, it's, literally Tuesday, and the Niners play on Sunday. But Izzy Abanikanda, I think, is probably a more complete running back than Isaac Guerendo or Patrick Taylor. I'll be interested to see how the running back carries get divvied up here. Guerendo's kind of he's an athlete, but he's not really, doesn't really have running back feel. I can't imagine he's going to be the full-time back. I think Taylor's probably the starter over him. But if you ask me who's the best of the three, I think it's this kid Abanikanda from the Jets, who I really liked at Pittsburgh. And this guy had 20 touchdowns one year at Pittsburgh. I mean, this guy led all of college football in touchdowns. Good back, good size, good athleticism. Tore, I think, the ACL last year in the preseason. He was on Hard Knocks, but I like this pick. I mean, I would not be surprised if on Sunday Izzy Abanikanda gets more carries and more run than Guerendo or Taylor. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
That'd be interesting. It would be funny if it took all these injuries for Kyle Shanahan to finally embrace a running back rotation. I don't understand why Kyle Shanahan got away from that. The last few years, whoever the starter is, that guy gets all the carries until he's hurt. When they went to the Super Bowl the first time, there was a pretty even split between Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert. And when he was in his final season with the Falcons, there was a pretty even split between Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman. And I feel like you see around the league, the Buccaneers are running the hell out of the ball with 2 running backs. Same with the Lions. I mean, the Packers were using 3 running backs against the Niners. I don't understand why Kyle Shanahan's been doing this the last few years, and I think it's not helping the team or the running backs. So hopefully they all get to play.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But I do like Abanikanda. Here's the big question that I had for really for Kyle. We'll see when we talk to him tomorrow if I get this one, if I can fire this one off. But where is George Kittle? Where is George Kittle? I mean, George Kittle was targeted only 4 times in Super Bowl 58. You're down Ayuk. Debo can't get open. Pearsall is a 0. And you have an all-world tight end, and he ran 6 routes, 7 routes, 8 routes all day long. He gets 2 targets and 1 catch. Why is Shanahan not getting the ball to his best playmakers? Why is with them down so many weapons, is Kittle being so underutilized? Am I missing something here?
I don't understand it. Like, how can you have a game where Kittle has 2 targets and Debo has 5? Why? Kittle is just way better than Debo. And I think what was weird about this last game is to me, it looked like the middle of the field was open for the 49ers to attack with Kittle. And instead, Kyle was calling like screens to Debo. And I mean, I don't know what Kyle was calling, but I also got to put it on Brock too. Like, you need to find your best player. It's Kittle, man. Where are you looking? Like, I know Jawan Jennings having a good year, but it's on you. You have the ball. Find George Kittle and throw him the ball. He'll catch it.
It's a weird thing. Kittle said that he only ran a half dozen routes the rest of the day and that he was open. He said, I was open multiple times. He said, I ran less than 10 routes all day and I was open multiple times.
Yeah.
What gives? And then what do you make of Debo? Because Debo doesn't separate against man coverage, doesn't get open as a receiver, is not a dynamic running back, and yet he looks super dynamic as a kick returner, but you can't have a $30 million kick returner. So, I mean, I think he looks good as a kick returner because I think his speed is now all build-up speed. There's no quickness. There's no first step, second step. There's no elusiveness. There's no acceleration. He's got build-up speed. So if you give him, he's 220 pounds. If you give him 7, 8, 9 steps of momentum, now he's got it cooking with some pretty good weight behind it. But he looks so much better and so much more dangerous as a kick returner than he does as a running back or a wide receiver right now. I don't know what to make of it.
I mean, he looks like he really shouldn't be playing wide receiver anymore. He should not be a starting wide receiver in the NFL anymore. And he's getting paid like he's one of the best. And Kyle Shanahan's still trying to feature him in the offense. It's almost like he's trying to justify the contract, which is not okay. You got to play the best players, the guys who've earned it. And George Kittle may not be this good next year. He's 31 years old. He's hurt every week with something, and yet he plays through it. He's one of the toughest guys in the team, but like, you're wasting one of his best seasons, if not his best seasons. It's a shame. And this is why football's not for long. There aren't that many games. It's brutal. Like, you can't mess around. You owe it to your team and to Kittle to get him more involved.
Get him more involved. All right, let's hit some supers because we got 20 of them and we don't want to go past an hour here. Here we go. Let's run them down. And sorry that I didn't get to them earlier. My timing on the some of these, I don't know if I should do them as we go, do them all at the end. So I always fuck it.
It's tough.
Anyway, Christian Ayala says, don't sign Brock. We need an elite quarterback. We are already thin at the O-line as it is. Our wide receivers can't create separation, and Kyle's playing soft. Kyle is useless. Shaking my head. Christian Ayala. Very familiar commentary there. Mason Davis says there's cons with Brock, of course, but he proved himself in the NFC Championship game last year. Stop doubting him. Retool the team. I guess my statement would be, I think the Niners have problems on offense are more about the guys around Brock than Brock. But Brock is the one that you're going to have to decide to pay right now. And right now, I don't want to pay him $50 million. Mm-hmm. Right now, I don't want to give him Tua Tagovailoa money. Mm-hmm. I want to see more before I'm willing to give him that money. I don't need to trade him or get rid of him, but I do need to keep drafting quarterbacks looking for a Hall of Famer because I think the league has told us you need a Hall of Famer to win. And he's not a Hall of Famer. I think he's good. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Dazza says Jameis Winston, if he could fix his interceptions, would be okay as a stopgap and would be a reasonable price. Brock Purdy is a fringe top 10. He's not elite, not worth $60 million.
I like Jameis, but we've been waiting for him to fix his interceptions since forever.
Jameis is an interesting character too. I mean, he is so intense in so many things. I kind of really like his personality, but his football's a little wild. It's a little all over the place.
Yeah, I do like his personality.
But he seems very genuine and very. I liked how he quoted Eminem last week, and he like knew every word. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
That? He's
I
like,
did.
"You got one shot." He's doing that whole thing. Poontang
No,
Pie.
don't say it.
Don't say Poontang Pie.
Oh, okay, you can say it.
I just said it. Poontang donates over here too. Breeze was a weak arm quarterback bust until he went to New Orleans. I don't know about that.
Wasn't.
He was Joe Tiller's monster Big Ten, producer for Purdue. Go look at the numbers.
He was a Pro Bowler with the Chargers. Am I wrong?
Yeah, he was good with the Chargers.
He was good with the Chargers.
They should have traded.
They did.
Rivers and kept Breeze, but they traded Breeze and kept Rivers.
He had one bad year. They panicked and drafted Rivers, and he was. I mean, he had Breeze had a 104 rating in 2004 in San Diego. I don't know why. I remember that, but
Breeze a great player. I mean, Breeze
a great player.
I mean, come on, we're talking about a Hall of Famer. He didn't have a huge arm, but he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Did Jen says you all tripping? Purdy's top 10 still. He will sign a cheaper long-term deal similar to early Steph Curry. Hurts was bad last year as down years happen in the NFL.
It's just rough to have the down year right before you want that extension. It's not what you want.
I mean, there's no law that says you have to pay him on his timeline. You can pay him on your timeline. You can wait. You can make him wait. I don't like the idea of moving off of him because they haven't had a guy and he's so much better than so many guys. But if you had another guy, there would be one thing. But do you think he'll
do an Ayuk where they're like, here, we'd like to offer you a 2-year deal worth $60 million? He's like, I'm holding out.
Yeah, I think
he could do that.
His agent is going to demand $55 million a year. That's what I think he's going to say.
That's a problem.
He's going to say, I want 3 years and 160 years.
Okay, well, we'll trade you to the Raiders. They'll pay it up.
Yeah. I mean,
enjoy Vegas.
Or they could just make him wait and just say, hey, you know what? Give us time because we're not.
Yeah, and if you do want to hold out, then we'll sign Darnold. So we're okay.
I mean, I don't know if I want to pay him more than Patrick Mahomes makes. Mahomes makes $45 million. I think in an ideal world, you say to Brock, hey, 3 years, $100 million. Let's do it. 3 years, $100 million, and then we'll reassess. How about that? $100 million. 3 years, $33 million.
That sounds fair. That's what Tampa gave Baker.
And it's a deal for Baker, and it's probably a deal for Purdy.
And there's an out after year 2. That's what I would like.
For Baker?
For Brock.
Is there?
For Brock.
That's what you want.
For Brock.
Casey Colt says the fact that the past 2 games would have looked similar with any of their 3 quarterbacks is why you can't pay Brock. Let him play out his contract. But, once again, is any quarterback winning with Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, and this version of Debo at receiver and this line? I mean, it's not a good line. People have talked about it. It's not great receivers. They're not getting separation. So, I mean, it's like this is the same
and
quarterback
also this
that
version
played
of
really
Kyle.
well against Green Bay and Detroit in the playoffs last year.
It's also this version of Kyle. It's not like he has the answers to get people wide open anymore the way he used to.
Well, exactly. I don't know if we're seeing the same creativity we've seen in the past.
Right.
Big Tim 3 says this isn't the same Krueger. LOL. No, here's my thing on that. People will say, "Oh, you jump around this and that." No, I don't jump around. I just am evolving because as there's a new game, there's a new performance. Your opinion needs to evolve as the games go on. You never ignore what's in front of your eyes.
Yep.
Because you had a thought about the way the thing looked, earlier. To me, it's not flip-flopping. It's I'm calling this as I see it. I'm going to tell you my honest opinion today, tomorrow, the next day. You know what I mean? And it evolves. I'm a big Purdy fan. I'm still a big Purdy fan. I still believe that the biggest issue is more what's going on around Brock than Brock. But I understand the criticism, and I think the criticisms are more than fair. I really do. Fish and chips is too cold for you in Buffalo, Larry. Veteran pass. Yeah, there's no way.
It's cold as hell.
I'm not going to Buffalo. I was looking at the weather there, and I'm like, is there like a barbed wire fence around that region? I mean, can the people not leave? I mean, it's like, what's going on there? I mean, in California, it's colder, but I mean, it's sunny. Tommy Child says, when are we going to look at the guy calling the plays in his system? I think it's time to change the coach to let the quarterbacks actually play quarterback. So now he's blaming Kyle. Keyshawn McMillan says Tom Brady said not letting quarterbacks develop is destroying the league. In bad year, Brock Purdy is league average. Good year is MVP finalist. If 49ers don't want to work with Brock Purdy, then they don't deserve to win. So I get what he's saying. He's saying in the bad year, he's average. In a good year, he's an MVP candidate.
So pay him? Ooh, okay.
I mean, the bottom line is he can't everybody on my back, Josh Allen it. So as far as I'm concerned, you can't pay him that way. You can't pay him like a everybody climb aboard. I'm carrying us when you're not that guy. And that's just kind of how I feel about that. Let's see. Did I miss one there? I think I might have skipped one. Oh no, we got that. There we go. Okay, I got lost. Okay, here we go. Dazza says Andy Reid has shown.
No, you did skip John Muniz though. You did just skip him. Go.
Oh, okay. John Muniz says the only way Kyle goes is Ben Johnson comes in. What you say? What I would say to that is be careful what you wish for on that. Why? Ben Johnson's 36 or 37. He's really, really young. He's only been an offensive coordinator since 2022. I could make an argument right now that he literally has, outside of Goff, the best everywhere. He's got the best two running backs. He's got the best offensive line. He's got the best receiving tight end. He's got maybe the best combination of receivers. He's got a vertical threat. He's got a for sure route runner in Amon-Ra. I mean, he's got the best. Only Goff is not really great, but even Goff looks great with this situation. So if you said to me, is the Lions offensive awesomeness about scheme or about personnel? I'd say it's more about personnel. That being said, I still love Ben Johnson's red zone play calling, and he creates space there where Kyle does not. But also that has to do partially with having Gibbs and having Jameson Williams and having some speed, having a laser throwing guy who's in lockstep with Amon-Ra in Goff. So that's all I say. I think Ben Johnson's a great coach, and I think he'd be a great hire. One, though, you can't get rid of Kyle Shanahan for a coach who last year turned down a head coaching opportunity. If you get rid of Kyle Shanahan for Ben Johnson, you got to fucking know that Ben Johnson's not going to say, you know what, I think I'd rather stay here.
Yeah,
if he stays there,
I slept on it,
cooked.
and no.
Yeah, I mean, and what if all of a sudden word gets out? You know what? Jed York just told Kyle he needed to do this, this, and this to stay. And if you don't win in a couple of years, he may be making those claims to you. How about go somewhere else and not come here? I mean, so I don't know. I mean, Ben Johnson's going to have choices. Let's just say that. He's going to have options. He's going to be able to go where he wants to go. Though I do think his red zone play calling is the best I've seen in football. I really do.
And what he's done with Goff, I mean, I know there's a good supporting cast for sure, but the work he's done with Goff is incredible. Like, it's Goff. No one thought anything of Goff, and this guy's made him really good.
Goff looks like a Pro Bowl quarterback in this situation. Dazza says Andy Reid has shown he's willing to change and adapt. Do we really think Kyle would be willing to? Well, I mean, that's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out, because I don't know that you can keep doing the same thing over and over again. I think you're going to have to adapt. And will be interesting to see if Jed, says, hey, come on back, is a down year. Or, I mean, Florio's making it seem like if he does come back, he'll be on the hot seat going into this next year. And that if he doesn't produce, this will be his final year. That's kind of what I got out of that Florio. Charlie Sinclair says the problem with Chicago is I don't think Kyle would want to answer to Kevin Warren. That's the Big Ten commissioner. I don't think Kevin Warren would cede power to Kyle. Bears are talking about Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach. That's another interesting name out there.
The Bears suck.
Yeah,
as an organization, as an organization, they just always get it wrong. So whoever they hire is the wrong guy, for sure.
And whatever quarterback they draft will almost by definition
they're going to ruin him. Yeah.
One shot, one take productions. If Kyle Shanahan went to Chicago, he would probably start Tyson Bagent over Caleb.
True.
Maybe Austin Reed.
True.
John Muniz says, funny, Larry always bragged how deep the team was. The team was exceptionally deep. I mean, it really was. This was a very deep football team. Think about this line 2 years ago. They had Arden Key and all these guys. These guys were like their second team line. The Niners' second team line from like 3 or 4 years ago is probably better than the defensive line they're putting out there the rest of the year right now. They were way deeper. They used to have Aziz Al-Shaair standing next to Johnny Holland on the sideline saying, hey, does Dre need a break? Does Fred need a break? Now you've got Flanagan Fowles and Campbell saying, we're getting toasted. Can we come off the field? Look how the linebacking core has fallen. Iconoclast said John needs to call about Joe Burrow this offseason. He can call all he wants. Nobody's trading Joe Burrow. He says Brock Purdy, Bosa first, Debo too if they want him, since he wouldn't, but shoot the shot. Kyle Shanahan is not married to Brock Purdy. It's so funny. I mean, come on, you're not getting Joe Burrow. Nick Falcon, if I'm trading Kyle, he's going to an AFC team. Okay. Russ Wilson was washed until this year. Keep Purdy. Well, once again, the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback. Put Russ behind a great line with some good talent and a great defense. Suddenly he looks better. HR says, Kyle, the Niners tree of hope will grow anew with the manure of your departure. You only use us now as fertilizer.
The only use to us now is fertilizer. That's rough.
Damn. Only used to us now is this fertilizer. Man, we're calling the coach fertilizer.
Mm.
Real OBJ CDT. Maybe the wide 9 is outdated. 7 or 8 of the top 10 defenses use 3-4 systems. The 4-3 works well with superior middle linebackers and defensive tackles that win their one-on-ones. Thoughts? Well, that's an interesting thing because a lot of people have talked about what do you do at defensive coordinator? Well, Shanahan likes Sorensen, so it sounds like he wants to bring him back. I would probably go with Saleh if I could get Saleh to come back, simply because they like Chris. Chris found Evan Anderson. Chris, they still like Chris. They like that wide 9. They want to keep it. At least with Saleh, he's coached with Chris before. Saleh to me is the only way they keep this thing together, change out the coordinator, and don't have to fire Chris and come up with a whole new defensive front. What's your thoughts on the wide 9, Grant? Do you want to stay with it? Do you want to dump it?
I don't think it's helping. Their run defense is a huge problem, which ends up being the end result of running the wide 9 for a long time. And their 4-man pass rush isn't particularly good. They implement it to improve their pass rush. It's not working anymore. I think they need to go in a new direction there. And if they had done that a couple of years ago, they would have had Fangio already.
Yeah, I mean, you seriously, if they were willing to go from a 4-3 to a 3-4, they could have had Vic. And Vic, look at the Eagles. The Eagles last year could not cover the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that playoff game. They couldn't even get on the same screen as the Bucs receivers in that game. Here we are less than a year later. They get the number 1 defense in the league. So Vic, tell me Vic isn't worth his weight in gold.
Yeah.
LA Jim Dude says, go get Joe Burrow, Belichick, run the ball, and play defense.
Go get Joe Burrow.
Oh, just go get Joe Burrow. Well, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
Did Jen says Breeze and Sean had 3 straight 7-9 seasons. LOL. Yeah. I mean,
the Niners would take 7 and 10 at this point. You think they can get 7 wins this year? You think they'll get 7? I don't know.
Yeah. I think they'll get this one and the Ram game, and that's it.
If they lose to the Bears, oh my God, it's going to get toxic.
Oh, I know. And the Bears. Come on, the Bears have a pretty good defense.
They're competitive.
Yeah. Did Jen imagine Grant's overreactions if he had crypto? LOL.
I don't.
Crypto. Matt Sanders. The problem is the losing culture, lack of responsibility, and double standards established by the front office. Talent is not going to save this. Talent saves everything. Talent is what wins, period. I don't think the Niners have a losing culture. I can't go there. I'm in the locker room every day. I don't think that's a losing culture. I've seen losing cultures. I've seen guys fighting at their lockers and motherfucking the coach. And, there are losing culture guys who everybody's got their bags packed and they're, ready to go on vacation. I mean, I don't get that sense.
I think there was a certain amount of complacency this season with this team, not with everyone, but with too many players and coaches. I don't know where it came from, but this team made a bunch of excuses all year. They never really seemed to lock in and have some real fire like they had last year and the year before. So maybe they'll have it again next year, or maybe they've tuned out their coach.
I don't like the fact that there hasn't been any ramifications or any, results of bad play. I mean, Campbell just plays bad week after week. He's just out there. There. It's like, what? Is he the last linebacker in the face of the earth? I mean,
Jake
what
Brendel.
is it? And I get the feeling that if they go to Jed for like, I want money to sign this guy, it's like they can't go back to Jed and say, hey, you know what? We now need to cut this guy, because it's like they lose face with Jed. So it's like that's the ownership holding things a little too tightly. You're not going to go perfect in every signing, and you have to have some flexibility to go with the best players as you see fit, not because you thought in May that Campbell was going to be something that he's clearly not.
And you're afraid of getting the owners upset with you. Like maybe that's the biggest indicator that Kyle could be under some pressure from ownership. The fact that he's like relentlessly playing the players that the owners have paid. Maybe he doesn't really have the option and freedom anymore to be like, hey, Jade, I know you spent an arm and a leg for player X, but his backup's better, and we're going to play the best player. That's the way it is.
Every single time we ask Kyle or John about trade deadline acquisitions, they were like, well, we'll just have to see if it fits our budget. And you're $54 million under the cap.
Yeah, come on.
I mean,
what are you talking about?
What budget? I mean, does it fix your? It's like almost like they got their marching orders after Ayuk. You will not get another nickel this year, so you're either going to win or you're going to lose with what you got.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we'll give you this Ayuk contract. We're not happy about it. It's not what we want to do, and don't ask us for anything else this year.
Yeah.
See that.
I could see the ownership being very frustrated by this season for sure. Shady Luke says Bears were giving the Lions offense the business. They just blew it. Yeah, I mean, seriously, the Bears are the Bears. Other than that, they won that game. They ran the ball. They dominated the time of possession. They gave the Niners a blueprint for how to beat the Packers, and then the Niners went and couldn't do any of it. Matt Sanders says Russ thriving because of a great coach and a great culture. Nick Falcon says the only guy I'd move off Kyle for in this cycle is Vrabel. Total philosophy change. Would you be excited going from Shanahan to Vrabel? I don't know.
No,
I'd have to know who's his offensive coach. I mean, because
he had Todd Downing at one point. Like,
this is the thing about Kyle's situation. He is the OC. So if you do dump Kyle Shanahan or trade him or sell him or whatever you're going to do with him, you're losing the head coach and the OC. So you're losing, you're going to have to find either another coach that can call plays or a coach who's then going to have to hire a new OC. And I don't know.
To me, you're looking for a guy who can get long-term results with a quarterback. And I don't know that that's Kyle. He's had little, flashes and flourishes with certain quarterbacks, but you want like what Kevin O'Connell's been able to do. You want what LaFleur's been able to do, what Dan Campbell's been able to do, what Sirianni's been able to do with Jalen Hurts. Like someone who can at least just have like a positive relationship with the quarterback and get the most out of him and keep him healthy and keep him upright. That would just be so great. And it seems like Kyle Shanahan either loses interest in quarterbacks or is like their biggest hater. I mean, he didn't like Jimmy. I don't know how he feels about Brock. He says nice things about Brock. He did at the Super Bowl last year, but I don't know how he feels anymore. I mean, you just need a coach and a quarterback on the same freaking page for a long time. And I don't know if the Niners have had that for a long time. They had that with Harbaugh and Kaepernick.
Great stream. Lots of people in here. Thanks to all of you guys for the supers, the comments, the support. Loving doing the channel. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. We're enjoying putting it out there. Grant, we'll finish with this. If you're a wagering man, and you can't say you're not because you are sponsored by BetUS, damn it.
Baby.
If you're a wagering man, and I know you are, what's the outcome? I mean, not what you would advocate and not what you would say is the best move. Now I'm asking you to just predict what actually will happen. Week 1 of next year, the Niners head coach is, the Niners starting quarterback is. It's tough.
I think the starting quarterback will be Brock, and I think the head coach will be not Kyle Shanahan. But I'm not. That's why I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be Kyle and it won't be Brock. Who knows? I just have a feeling that they're gonna lose the rest of their games.
This year.
Yeah, I think they're gonna lose the rest of their games, and if that happens, I think Kyle's gonna get traded.
Here it would be my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ownership is going to want some changes.
Yep.
in personnel, evaluation. You can't have no blame. You can't have blameless losing. You can't say
They're going to
it's
take
not
some power from him.
It's not
Yeah.
Sorensen's fault, but it's also not Lynch's fault. It's
Mm.
either Lynch's fault or Sorensen's fault, but it can't be neither are at fault because you either don't have the weapons or you do have the weapons and it's not being coordinated. And Shanahan said it's not on Sorensen, so he's not pointing at Sorensen. I do get a frosty vibe from Shanahan towards Lynch and Lynch towards Shanahan. I'm not suggesting they don't like each other because I think they do like each other, but I do get the sense I've know for sure that I've heard John say things that would make me go, I wonder if he's pointing at Kyle. I've heard Kyle say things and I wonder if it's not Sorensen's fault. Whose fault is it? It's got to be the people picking the players. I will say this: Jed will make new requests of Kyle. Kyle will push back. They will mutually agree to part ways. And I think the Niners will go to the Houston OC that was here before. What's his name?
Slowick.
Bobby
Slowick. I don't like this. I don't
Bobby
like it.
Slowick. I could see them going to Bobby Slowick and Bobby Slowick brings somebody off of D'Amico's staff with him to be the DC.
See, if the Niners, I'm with you, man. If the Niners mutually agree to part ways with Kyle, I think that I could see that happening. But I'd like to see them leave Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree. If they actually move on from Kyle, then move on from Kyle. You don't want to break up with someone and then start dating their cousin, man. That's just messed up. It's wrong.
I'd stay with Kyle. I'd stay with Lynch, but I would, if it was my show, if Jed came to me and said, you know what, I'm tired of running the show, Krug. I listen to Niners Nightly. I love you on YouTube. You're running the show. Then I would say, John, you're coming back. Kyle, you're coming back. John, we're going to bring in a John Dorsey or a Scott McLuhan. We're going to bring in a draft consultant. We're going to pay him $250,000 a year to give us his thoughts of this draft. And then we're going to take our guys and this new consultant, and we're going to cook up a really good draft. But that would be my demand. And then I would demand Kyle to give up all control of personnel. If Kyle will give up control and John will be willing to have a draft consultant, then I'm bringing the whole crew back and I'm drafting quarterbacks to play behind Brock Purdy that are rookies. And I'm trying to find the next franchise quarterback while staying with Brock. That's how I'd play my cards. We'll see.
Ray Agnew from the Lions, assistant GM, came over there with Brad Holmes from the Rams. That guy might be someone you might want to bring into your front office.
Who's that again?
Ray Agnew.
Oh, Ray Agnew. Well, Ray
John
Agnew,
number
Dorsey,
2 guy.
Yeah, John Dorsey, I thought was a consultant there. And I mean, Brad Holmes has done an amazing job. He really has. I mean, let's give Brad Holmes his credit. Brad Holmes has hit big time stars. Brian Branch, Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell. I mean, even later, they've found lots of great players. He's a terrific young GM. And Rafael Flores, last one, says, imagine Brock Purdy with a Harbaugh tenure. He would have beasted it up with Greg Roman. Purdy would have been elevated by Jim as well. He would have been pounding on those shoulder pads, on Brock's shoulder pads. Get out there, Brock. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Grant. Thanks to BetUS. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to all of you guys. As I hunt around for the button that says we're out of here. There it is. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day. We'll be in Santa Clara tomorrow, bringing more nuggets of wisdom your way. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.